but we are made to know Him. Nothing could be more important. Now, I mentioned before that there is a difference between knowing about God and knowing God personally. You can actually know about God through the Bible. Actually, you can know about God in the Bible even without knowing God personally. I mean, does that make sense? You know, I've met people with a PhD in the Bible who do not know God personally. But if we can know the Bible without knowing God personally, does that mean we can know God personally without knowing the Bible? No. No. The logic doesn't work in that direction. You don't need to be a Bible scholar, but you can't know God without knowing the Bible. I mean, how else would you know who the one true God is? And how else would you know that God is not just a projection of your own feelings or fantasies in your own imagination? So you can't know God without knowing the Bible. You can know about God, but we are made to know God personally, and the Bible plays an essential part of that. The process of knowing someone personally, I just want to describe, is first knowing some information about the person before it goes deeper into a personal relationship. You know, like when you first got to know your spouse, right? Or significant other, or best friend. You know, whether you're married or you were married. After you first get introduced to your future spouse, you get some information about the person. You know, where the person's from, what the person does for a living, where does the person live, and what the person has done in his or her life. You can get all this information about the person without even being up close and personal. I mean, these are things you can even read just from a Facebook or social media profile. Knowing these things do not mean that you know the person personally. But eventually, as your future husband or wife interacts with you and becomes closer to you, things get more personal. You find out more about how the person deeply feels on things and issues, what hurts the person, what makes the person feel joyful and alive, you know, in a sense, what makes the person tick, what the person hates, and the other person finds out these same things about you. You know, it's not a one-way relationship. Your interest grows and the trust develops, then soon you become friends, right? And then you become engaged. Then after that, you, what? Get married. And a new relationship is born. So, you know, it's a common experience. You see how things move along from knowing information about the person to knowing someone personally. Doesn't it make sense that the church is called the bride of Christ? And heaven is sometimes described as a wedding banquet. That's because it's all about a personal relationship with God. Now, I think maybe for some people, even just the idea of knowing another human being personally may be hard and difficult. You know, some people may have had bad relationships, marriages that didn't work or ended badly. Some may have grown up or been raised in households where there isn't much of a personal relationship between them and their parents, or they grew up in an environment where, you know, whoever's raising them is not the parents to begin with. Some may have even had abusive relationships. So all these things sometimes makes it difficult for some because they have a wall that keeps them from engaging people in a close relationship. But a relationship with God, if you think about it, also, I mean, add that to how would it even be possible to have a relationship with God, because He's invisible and we are not. We are weak and He is not. We are imperfect and He is not. He is perfect. God is the Father, the Creator, the Judge, the Master, the Redeemer, and the Healer. What kind of relationship can you have with someone like that? How about this? How about being a friend of God? Let me explain how that works. Now, anyone can know about God. Anyone can get information about God, whether the person is a believer or not. The first chapter in Romans says that you can know about God by just looking at the things that He made. You can know about God by just noticing His creation. I mean, look at any great and magnificent thing of nature, like, the stars in the sky, a big thunderstorm, the roar of the ocean, the birth of a child, the sophisticated and complex design of the DNA structure of a human body. Anyone can know about God, even if God is an invisible spirit. It's like knowing about the existence of, let's say, wind, right? You can't see the wind when it blows, but you can see the effects of the wind as you see things move and as you feel the wind in your skin. But Romans chapter 1 also says that even with the evidence of the existence of God in creation, people actually chose to ignore Him. People chose to ignore God instead of acknowledge Him. And that's because of sin. In the very beginning at the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve had a close and intimate relationship with God. Adam and Eve delighted in God, and God delighted in them back. And there were no rules, no regulations, except for one, the one that involves eating from a particular tree. They were made to live in a simple relationship with God. But sin broke that relationship. In the Old Testament, you see God reaching out to get this relationship back with people. And to help people, God sent them the law in tablets of stone so that they may know what to expect from a relationship with Him. And God sent them prophets whenever they go the wrong path. And God provided a temple so that they can make sacrifices, in a way seek temporary provision for the forgiveness of their sins. But not many ended up with a personal relationship with God. I'm talking about the Old Testament folks. Sure, there were people of faith such as Abraham, Isaac, Moses, David. They knew God. The Bible calls Abraham a friend of God. But for all others, the relationship was not out of love and intimacy. The relationship was more out of fear, out of obligation. And that's why God sent His only Son, Jesus Christ. Jesus came and lived on this earth. He lived a perfect life. He died and rose from the dead and ascended into heaven so that you may know God. Jesus died to take sin out of the way so that you may know God and have a personal knowledge and relationship with God. And because of Jesus, nothing is in the way of having this relationship. So for those who trust in Jesus, instead of having rules and regulations in tablets of stone, the law is written in your heart. That means those who know God personally also know God's desires and His will internally. Like Abraham, Moses, David, you become a friend of God. Sure, God is still your Father, your Creator, Redeemer, and Judge. But shockingly, because of Jesus, you can become friends with God. Are you personal with God? Can you say that you are a friend of God? Do you talk to God apart from just asking God for things? What we know about friends too is that friends value what their friends value. If you are a friend of God, do you value holiness and righteousness? Is that true in your life? For those of you who may need some encouragement in your relationship with God, I offer a few more scriptures. James 4, verse 8. It's not up there. I'm just going to say it briefly. Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you. That's a promise. In Exodus 34:14, it says that God is a jealous God. That means God is passionate about having a relationship with you and would not want to give your life to other things like money, possessions, or pleasure. He passionately wants a relationship with you. Hosea 6, God doesn't want your sacrifices, but He wants your love. He doesn't want your offerings, but He wants you to know Him. Jeremiah 29:13, God says, you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. What that tells us is that you are as close and personal to God as you choose to be. I mean, it's your choice if you are up close and personal to God. If you feel far away from God, it's not because God left you. You just need to seek Him with all your heart, and He will respond. So that's why I'm suggesting that our resolution as a church this year is about knowing God. That we may know God better than we have known Him before. That we may know Him much more than anything we can possibly even imagine. This is actually my resolution for the year. One thing you ought to know about me is that